Hello, and welcome to Library 101, developed for the Professional Development and First Year Experience classes. This particular presentation is going to focus on MLA style and plagiarism. We're going to look at the ins and outs of MLA formatting, citation, and how to avoid plagiarizing people's work. The goal of this is to help you achieve the best grade possible, and anyone can format papers and cite correctly. They just need to know the correct tools to use. So first of all, there are several different styles of papers that teachers can specify. So there's several formats out there. MLA and APA are two of the biggest ones, but there's also Chicago, Tribune, and several others, Turabian, that you could get asked if you were going on into academics. Typically at Flint Hills Tech, APA and MLA are the ones that you're going to use most often. So if you can learn one of these styles, then you can more easily adjust to the others, because usually they're pretty similar in nature. They're just a few specific arrangement things that make them just slightly different. And so once you figure that out, that's kind of one of those things. But this isn't something you're expected to memorize. This is something that even if you went back to college at the age of 30, 40, 50, you would still have to go back and reference to really make sure you get it right. As an English major and somebody who wrote a lot of papers and somebody who has graded a lot of papers, I still have to go back and reference to make sure that it's right. So it's really just about learning how to find the right tools. It's not so much about memorizing how to actually make it, just know how to format a paper. So a lot of people will also say, when am I ever going to write an MLA paper after high school or college? Why do I have to need to know how to do this? And you're right. The likelihood if you don't go on academically beyond Flint Hills Tech to a four-year institution or to other academic pursuits, you're probably not going to be required in the work world to write a paper in MLA format. However, you will be required to do certain aspects of your job and meet a format. Most things in work environments have a formatted expectation, whether it's a chart or a form or paperwork or how paperwork is presented or processed. If you learn how to look for those little details that make the formatting specific to anything, then you're going to better understand when you get into the work world, which is a skill, how to look at a piece of paper that has a certain form and figure out how to match that format. And that's the big thing, is that you're learning the skill of looking at a preset parameter of information, of how to present information to someone, and then you're figuring out how to make that happen. And that's the part. That's the part that's going to apply in the work world. It's not so much the MLA or the APA, it's the skill of figuring out how to do it without having somebody sit down and tell you step by step. Because in the work world, you're probably not going to have somebody who's going to walk you through the process. They're going to just expect that you can figure it out on your own. So, this presentation is going to focus on what MLA is, the purpose and reason, and then what you need to know. How to find the information, how to organize it, how to create it, and then how to use it when you're doing your papers and reports. So MLA stands for Modern Languages Association. It's been used for over 50 years, and it was last updated in 2016. So depending on if you were to go on academically, you might have a teacher that specifies which edition you should use for MLA. Usually it's because it's one they're more familiar with, but you should always generally just always go with the most recent version of MLA that is available. Now the reason it was created was to establish a set procedures for academic and scholarly writing. The idea was that regardless of whether or not you went to Harvard or you went to a community college in Kansas, that when you were reading academic writing, it would all be presented in the same way so that it would be easier to focus on the content and understand and comprehend what's being presented. This clear and consistent presentation style was widely adopted, especially in languages and social sciences. So if you're doing an experiment that is very scientific based, you're going to write your paper more likely in APA, whereas MLA is more for analysis writing, where you are taking information and analyzing it and then presenting that analysis to someone else. And so that's why it's better lended for languages or literature or social sciences. And notice that even though I am presenting this information, I didn't come up with it. I still cite my sources, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, if you cite your source, it gives you credence and it lends you authority, because it seems like you've researched what you're presenting and people are going to trust it and believe that you're giving them the most accurate information possible. The other reason is because you should give credit where credit is due, and it's a habit you should get into right now while you're in school. When you get out into the work world, you may have to work on projects with lots of other people. You may have to go out and get other information. And if you end up in a situation where you claim work that was your own and you don't give credit where credit is due, it's going to land you in a lot of hot water in a job that you probably aren't going to want. So make sure that you always give credit to people or whoever wrote it, thought it, came up with it, presented it. And the way you do that in paper writing is through formatting and citation. So, how do you find the information you need? Well, the first thing is to start with a list of what you need. And I recommend that you kind of look at this before you even start researching, so you kind of have an idea of what to look for. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is because it makes it easier as you're looking for resources and you're finding them, that you're keeping track of making all that information that you're going to need when you create your paper. But the second reason is also because if you can't actually find all the information to cite a source, it probably isn't a valid source to use in academic paper writing. It's a really good way to kind of eliminate websites that really just kind of are borderline or questionable as to whether or not they would be valid for academic paper writing. So it's my recommendation that you always go look at what you're going to need so that you can look at that as you're researching. So, the OWL at Purdue is the online writing lab that is run by Purdue University. It's run by their graduate students, and they are really good about updating anytime there's a new format to update and presenting information in a really digestible way. So it's one of my favorite websites to go to when I'm working on papers and I need to know about source information. So, if you'll notice, this is an example of a works cited page. Everything is in alphabetical order, except for, you might say this, but that's actually correct because it is the I that we're alphabetizing, because this is a generic article like the, or, and similar articles. So this will give you an idea of what you're looking for. Authors, titles of them, like if it's an article title of the publication it was in, dates, website addresses, when it was accessed. This is kind of just the brief overview of what you're going to want to look for. But if you look up here, this is going to give you general information, a little more specific, where if you want to know exactly how to format a printed book, this is going to tell you. It's going to tell you what order, it's going to tell you the punctuation, it's going to tell you exactly what you should do. And the other great thing is that it also tells you if there's no author, or if it's a group of authors, if it's more than one author. These are going to give you those little details that are going to vary with each thing that you are using. So the generic is up at the top, and then those fluctuations are listed down at the bottom. So this is just a really great place to go to just kind of get an idea of what it is you're going to need. So where do you find all that information? So to make sure that you're getting the correct information that you can use to cite, here are some general rules to keep in mind. Books is usually found on the title page, which is inside the cover, and it's usually, you have a title page that may have art, or it may be centered. If you flip the page over, it should have a bunch of small print text that is important to librarians, but it'll have things like copyright dates, and it will have publication information, and it'll have ISBN numbers and things like that. So that's where you're going to find most of it. On periodicals, it varies, but most of the key info is going to be on the contents page. That's usually found just after opening ads or visual content. So sometimes it's only a few pages in, sometimes it's more. It just kind of depends on the periodical. But once you find the contents page, which usually comes right after, usually it'll be the last of the contents page if there's more than one, the key information about publication will be there. For electronic sources, it varies, but most commonly it's at the very bottom of generic websites under contact info. If it's an electronic journal article that you have found through an internet database at the library, then the most likely thing is it's going to be listed at the top of the article, or it will actually have an option to give you the citation on the sidebar, as you may have seen in the Library 101 Section 1. And those are all really great, but make sure that you double check those entries to make sure they're in MLA format and that they are correct. Always double check if you have a pre-given citation works cited entry. Make sure you look at it and that it matches the format you're using. So how do we organize all that information? Well, once you've located it, it has to be put in that particular order. Again, reference the OWL at Purdue, where everything is in that alphabetical order. And this is going to give you some of that basic in-text stuff. It's going to talk about in-text citations. And the in-text citations should always match your works cited page. So the works cited page, it's really important that you make sure that your works cited page matches. You should never have anything cited in a paper that is not actually in your works cited, nor should you have anything on your works cited page that's not actually cited in your paper. So, there we go. So when you're looking at this, if you have all of these sources listed, all of these should be cited in your paper. And your teacher's going to know because it should have this hanger. This is why these are offset like this. Notice that it's indented so that so after your quote it says Dean, and it may have a page if pages are available, but it's going to say Dean, and I can flip back and see what that source was that it came from. So regardless of the type of source, the order is generally the same. Author, last name, first name, or editors. This is a big difference to APA. The title of the article or work. In APA, your date comes next, but in MLA, it's title. Title of a magazine or journal, publisher, locations, and date of publication. And also pages. Pages are listed when it is a hard print resource. If it's electronic, it is not as common to have pages, but if it is a hard print resource, you should always list the page in which you got your information. Print or web is not in fashion anymore. If you go back to that OWL at Purdue website and look at the sample works cited, you'll notice that is a change. It used to be required that at the end of the citation you would write whether or not it was a print or electronic resource. Instead, now they have added back in that you actually include the web address and when it was accessed. So that has changed, and I need to update my PowerPoint. So how to create citations. There are several options available. Like you can just follow the format and plug it in, type it in, make sure you use proper punctuation, capitalization, italics, underlining, and all of that, and tabbing over when you're typing it in. I find that typing it in is easiest. Copying and pasting, usually the formatting gets all messed up and makes it hard. Also, if you use some of these other websites that you can do, like EasyBib, and there's several others, again, the formatting just doesn't always print out right. It doesn't always fit. So it's really important that you make sure it fits the paper. So EasyBib's an option. That is the EasyBib website is changing. Currently it's still usable, but it's one of those things that will be going away over the next year. And there are other websites out there, but again, make sure that you always double check the entry matches what the expectation is. So even if you're using a website that's providing it for you, or you got it from a journal database and it provided you a citation, double check that it's in the right format and it's done correctly. How to create your paper. So open a Word document on your computer and then follow along to set this video to set up an MLA formatted document. So students have tons of electronic devices these days, and it's one of my things that, like, If you're a visual person, grab your phone, play the video, and have the document up on your computer and follow along. You can pause it as you need to, but it's going to tell you exactly what you need to do. So here's an example of an MLA, a good quality video. All right. So notice that this is 7th edition. So like there are going to be certain citation things that are going to be different because we are on a more modern one. But if you look over here, there's other ones you can probably find, the most recent manual. I'm just going to use this video just to show you what you can do. Because the other part is that you also want to look at the reality that your screen may not exactly mirror what you have down here. So depending on which Word program you're running, you may have different things, but the tabs and should all be the same.
Go first up to the Page Layout tab.
So Page Layout tab.
And then click on the Margins Launcher arrow. In the big drop-down menu that you see, click on Normal. Place a 1-inch margin.
You can literally just follow along with this video, bottom, and it's going to help you set your paper up to make sure it's formatted correctly. Again, this is an older edition, and the only big difference in this edition is going to be in the citations, so make sure your citations are the most modern edition. Remember, when listing the bibliography works cited page, to alphabetize it by first letter of the entry. And if you are more of a click this, and just read it, there are quick step handouts available. You can print them off of the LibGuides MLA style, or if you come to the library, there are MLA quick step guides available for you to pick up. So why does MLA matter? Well, it's your best defense against being found guilty of plagiarism. And plagiarism is kind of a serious deal. It's really important you give credit where credit is due. So first, if we were in a face-to-face class, I would have everyone write down on a piece of paper what they think plagiarism is. And here's the thing, is that then I would have you go around and read them. And even though you would all probably be pretty similar, and you might use some of the same vocabulary when you're describing what plagiarism is, no two people would have exactly the same words in the exact same order. And the reason is because we all have our own way of phrasing things. We have our own lexicon, our own type of vocabulary, our own backgrounds, and our own takes on things. And so that's why it's really important to make it really clear when it's not your work, because if somebody's familiar with the way you speak and write, they're going to know when it's something that's not yours. So it's really important that you follow the scholastic honesty. This is the FHTC policy, and if you notice, if you are caught plagiarizing, you could result in an F grade, suspension, or dismissal from the course or college. So it could get pretty serious. It's really important that you cite what you're doing. Those consequences are not just limited to academic. I'm sure you've heard of cases where people have plagiarized speeches, where people have lost elections because they've plagiarized speeches. There have been bands that have gone to court and had to pay multi-million dollars to people because they plagiarized their work. So it's really, really important that you don't do these things. It can destroy your student, professional, or academic reputation. There can be legal repercussions. People can take you to court. There can be monetary repercussions. You may have to pay somebody because you use their work. In school, there's the expulsion and dismissal. You could lose funding and scholarships. In a job, you could just lose your job, which means you're going to lose your livelihood and income. So it's really important that you give credit where credit is due. If you use information from anybody other than yourself, cite it. Always cite it. I read it in Time magazine. According to my boss, Lenny said, there is a difference between saying giving somebody else credit when it's not theirs and taking credit when it's not yours. It's way worse. But there's also that reality that the downside of citing too much is way less than the downside of not citing at all. Always give credit. This is where MLA helps protect you, to give credit where credit is due. And the next slide has an handy chart to help you know whether or not you should cite. So if you're in question, there's a chart. But anytime you're in doubt, if you're not sure, then cite. So, are your own words being used? Yes or no? If yes, is it your idea? If it is your idea and it is your words, then you're fine. That's yours and you own it. But if it's not your idea, it may be your own words, but it's not your idea, then you're paraphrasing, and that should be cited. On this side, if you said no, it's not your own words, are you using quotation marks or placing in a block quote? If yes, then you're doing it correctly. You're citing and not plagiarizing. But if you're not quoting, you are plagiarizing, and you need to quote it. Proper citation in the text of your paper. So, again, the OWL at Purdue is going to give you examples of that, so it's a great place to go. It's going to talk about, this is what is called signal phrase. So Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry is marked by, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So see how short that is? That's 5 words. And the reason it's in quotes is because probably you would not phrase it exactly like that. That means it was directly from something that they read or found. This page number is going to tell us what's page. Because it's Wordsworth is up here, I'm going to look at the works cited, and I'm going to look for Wordsworth, and I'm going to see if the pages listed include these pages. And if I have more curiosity, then I'm actually going to go find that resource with that information and make sure that this is an accurate quote. So, if it's a short quotation, usually you just need the author last name and page number if applicable. If it's a longer quote, meaning 40 or more words, it's a freestanding block that's a ½ inch indented tab on all lines of text in the block. And then at the end, the author last name and page number is listed. Now, I caution you because this should only be used if you have a really, really good reason to do so. Like, for example, the only time I've ever used a long quotation where it's a freestanding quote is when I was doing literature analysis, and so I was taking chunks from a poem and then analyzing them, and so I would sometimes have to use longer chunks to get the analysis. That is the only time. So it's very rare that you're going to use those long quotes. This isn't something I would recommend in general academic writing. If you summarize or paraphrase, after you have summarized or paraphrased, you put the author last name and page number. And all of these, this in parentheses comes right before the period at the end of the sentence. So even if the quotation falls in the middle of the sentence, it's still, the citation still doesn't come until the period at the end of the sentence. Here are some other ways to help you avoid plagiarism. Read your paper and have someone else read it. One of the best ways to make sure that you are paying attention and catching everything that doesn't sound like you is to have someone else read your paper. There's also online tools like Grammarly. This will check spelling and grammar errors for you and help pick out and improve your writing skills. It's a program that you can download to your on your computer for free, and it'll run on Word and email and online applications. Anytime you're not sure, it's better to cite than plagiarize. Don't forget that. Always better to cite. Some other helpful things that are going to help you write better. If you go, there is the helpful paper writing tools on the LibGuides. This gives you classes if you want to improve your writing skills, some practice things on parts of speech, grammar, and spelling. But over here is the best ones. You have Plagiarism Checker, Dupla Checker, and Paper Rater. You can go in and actually upload your papers and it will check your plagiarism for you so that you can go back and edit them. Now, the reason this is important is if you go on in a 4-year educational program, there is the chance that they're going to have you use Turnitin.com for all your work, in which if you plagiarize, it's going to automatically kick it back and won't allow you to submit the document. So it's really important that you get in the habit of checking to make sure those things are right. There's also some helpful information about common areas of grading and writing so that you kind of have a good idea. There's also those quick steps and some quick guides on citing for APA and MLA listed there. Additionally, if you're going to create a presentation based on your research, there's some tools, tips, and tricks on ways that you can create fun and inventive presentations. PowerPoints are pretty standard, but it's important that you remember the 10-20-30 rule. It's commonly forgotten by most people, but this means that 10 slides should equal 20 minutes, meaning you should be able to talk for 2 minutes per slide, and there shouldn't be anything smaller than 30-point font on that slide. That will keep you from printing too much information and then help you resist the urge to read your slides to your audience, which is never a good thing and doesn't help the presentation. But there's some other tips in here and other ways that you can create different animated videos and other formats and recommendations. There's also, if you are getting ready to write papers but you do not have Word programs, Flint Hills Technical College has a virtual desktop, which means that you can actually log in to our desktop and have access to all Word programs, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, etc. So if you're on a Mac or you are on a machine that doesn't have any of the Word programs, all you have to do is go to this website, and you're actually going to log in to the main Flint Hills website, click on Virtual Desktop, and then if you want to use it just once, you just run this. But if you want to use it several times, you can also install it onto your computer. If you have a computer that is being shared with another school, they may restrict it and not allow you to actually install that software, so keep that in mind. Then once it comes up, select Presentation, and then you can literally start writing on Word or whatever program you need. There is also one other feature of the library is that if you have a computer meltdown or something happens, you can actually come check out a laptop, and those laptops can be checked out for overnight for 1 day or extended with special permission. You just need to bring me a $5 deposit and fill out the agreement form. So hopefully this will help you do the best writing you can, and you can actually get all of the citation and formatting correctly, because anybody can do this. It's just the matter of using the correct tools and following along. It's a plug and play, and as long as you can do that, you can get a good grade, because the thing about formatting is it's black and white. For teachers, you either did it or you didn't, and it's very easy to grade. So make sure you follow the formatting guidelines and use these videos to help you out.